So the U.S. Fed has decided to, or the FOMC to be more precise, the Federal Open Market Committee. That's what the U.S. Committee of Governors, the Central Bank or the Federal Reserve is called, the FOMC. It started yesterday to leave the Fed fund rate between 2.25 and 2.50%. The outlook is that the patience talk about by Jerome Powell a few months ago is beginning to fade to impatience, which means the Fed is likely to raise rate before the end of the year. That's what most analysts are talking about. And we're putting that in our own news box for the commodities market. You need to consider that. Today, the Bank of England was also taking rate. The session, the ECB was on tap during the week, as well as the Bank of Japan. Those are the big boys. We talk about central bankers in the world. Tumikolo, you agree with me? When the FOMC, the BOE, the ECB, and the BOJ talk, everybody listens.
Exactly.
So that's big news for our economic news today, isn't it?
Yes, it is. But we have other burning economic issues. We have the fact that the Brent has increased, external reserves has decreased, Airtel has begun its listing process on the stock exchange, and the Naira has depreciated. And then there's also the fact that the U.S. has maintained its rates.
Okay, so this is, but I love this. The Airtel listing, I know consumers of telecom services will be looking at that very, very closely, the applications to list on the stock exchange, bringing Airtel in after MTN, and perhaps before the end of the year, we'll have another one, and perhaps by next year, we'll have all of them.
Exactly.
Most likely. I'm just ambitious. But Naira slight decline here should be a concern to everyone, or should be something to note.
It's something to actually note because the decline wasn't, it's just marginal, it's small. Then the fact that the Naira increased it's just basically because the U.S. was able to command a stronger business. So it's just, and it's also due to the fact that the Feds were able to maintain their rates. If, for instance, the rates dropped, then we could have seen something different. But we also have to take note of the fact that this is a period, the summer period is coming. So obviously, Nigerians are going to begin demanding more forex, and then if the CBN intervention isn't enough, then it's going to end up depreciating our currency further.
So this is some pressure coming in there. $210 million this week so far. Maybe there'll be another one tomorrow, right?
Who knows?
Who knows? But $210 million is quite some size to start the week with, right?
Yes, it is. So if...
Okay, but you folks start traveling out, going back to school, coming back for holidays. Exactly. So we're getting to that season.
Exactly.
So we expect, you folks expect some little gentle volatility in exchange.
It's something that could happen if the supply, if the CBN's forex intervention isn't keeping up with the rate at which people are demanding for the forex. Or if it is, then the currency could end up like remaining at this or even depreciating further, because for a long time, the currency rate was stable at 361 Naira. So this is just a marginal increase. So we have to watch it so that it doesn't further decline. I'm
sure the central bank, Godwin Emefiele and his team will be hoping oil prices stays very steady up north of 60, so that accretion into the FX reserves would help them do those interventions, because that's where the money is coming from. We're not doing any Eurobond at any time soon, according to the debt office. So, okay, so why are we with power? Because that keeps to be one major story we're talking today with Forty Oil divestment. Femi Otedola getting out of Forty Oil, and says he's putting about $1 billion in Gerego power plant. So power is very important. Where are we in terms of production and output?
Okay, our output currently now is above 4,000. It's around 4,152 megawatts per hour. But this is the second time our power has been able to increase above 4,000. Like the remaining days, it was below 4,000, around 3,500, or even lower. So basically, this is important in the fact that we're able to reduce our grid constraints also. So this just helped us to be able to increase power output.
Okay, what else is there in the news? Looking at, let's say, if we talk about the oil a little bit more, in terms of the volatile oil market, what's the outlook for this week, maybe next week from your team?
Okay, our outlook is for the oil price to be between $63 and $65. There's the fact that
you folks are bullish.
There's the fact that
I like that.
The U.S. and China are going to hold a meeting next week.
Yeah, the G20 meeting.
Exactly.
Looks like everybody is calming down a little bit. The rhetorics are getting toned down a little bit.
Yes, and before this was announced, there was a bearish trend in the crude oil price. So like once this was announced, we were able to see a bullish trend. So this could probably continue. There's also the fact that OPEC has finally settled on the date its meeting is going to hold. Before, they couldn't decide whether it was going to be.
Yeah, we had that discussion on Tuesday.
Yes,
now they
exactly.
decided. When is it going to take place?
Decided. So now it's going to be between July 1st and July 2nd. So this is also going to help us know exactly.
Maybe they were listening to us on Tuesday. And they said, look at Bosin and Tumishe talking about we can't even agree on a date to have a meeting. How do we agree on price, Tumishe? I'm just surprised. Maybe they were listening to us and just decided they need to fix their own house before someone else fixes it for them.
Exactly. So now, that's why our outlook is between $63 and $65. Okay. Because if the U.S. and China meeting hold, it could actually end up settling the trade tensions, and this would be very good for the global market, not just the U.S., but like for everyone, because these two economies are the largest economies in the world right now. So it's going to be good for the oil price.
When they talk, all of us had to listen. Okay, that's about what the oil prices are, the situation on ground. So July 1 and July 2nd, everyone keep that on your calendar. Starting the new month of July for you, technically the second half of 2019, as far as the oil market and the meeting is concerned and all that. We'll be part of that as well, everyone. Thank you so much. And I'm sure with Atumike and the rest of the team at Financial Derivatives Company, I'm sure you're keeping us up to speed on what happens before, then, and after.
Yes.
Thank you. We appreciate your coming on the program, a member of the economic think tank at Financial Derivatives Company. So still keeping it with the energy sector. Let's get the conversation continuing in just a second.